My teenage son came home with a black eye and said, "Don't ask." I grabbed his arm. "I'm your mother, I need to know." He ripped away. "No, you just want to control me." My husband stood up. "Show some respect." My son laughed. "Respect? Like you show mom?" My stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" My son crossed his arms. "I know about the secret you've been hiding." It was a quiet Sunday afternoon in our suburban home in Aurora, Colorado. The sun cast a warm glow through the windows, and the aroma of freshly baked cookies filled the air. I was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, when I heard the front door slam shut. "Hey, Mom," my teenage son, Ethan, mumbled as he walked past me, his face turned away. "Ethan, what's wrong?" I asked, noticing the bruise forming around his eye. "Don't ask," he replied, heading straight to his room. I followed him, concern growing. "Ethan, I'm your mother. I need to know what happened." He turned sharply, his eyes filled with anger. "No, you just want to control me." My husband, Mark, entered the room, his voice firm. "Show some respect." Ethan laughed bitterly. "Respect? Like you show mom?" My stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" Ethan crossed his arms. "I know about the secret you've been hiding." The room fell silent. Mark's face turned pale, and I felt a knot form in my stomach. "What secret?" I asked, my voice trembling. Ethan pulled out his phone, showing me a series of messages. "These," he said. I took the phone, reading the messages between Mark and another woman. My heart sank. "How did you find these?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your phone synced with the family tablet." "I saw everything," Ethan replied. I felt betrayed, tears welling up in my eyes. "How long has this been going on?" Mark looked down. "A few months," he admitted. The days that followed were a blur. Mark moved into the guest room, and Ethan avoided both of us. The once warm and loving home felt cold and distant. I tried to talk to Ethan, but he remained distant. "I can't trust either of you," he said. I sought solace in my friends, sharing my pain and confusion. They offered support, but the betrayal cut deep. One evening, I gathered the courage to confront Mark. "Why?" I asked. He sighed. "I felt neglected. We were drifting apart." "So you cheated?" "It was a mistake," he admitted. I shook my head. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, not betraying your family." After weeks of tension, I decided to file for divorce. Mark moved out, and Ethan chose to stay with me. We began therapy, trying to rebuild our relationship. It wasn't easy, but we were making progress. Months passed. Ethan started opening up, sharing his feelings and fears. We bonded over shared activities, slowly mending our broken relationship. I focused on self-care, rediscovering hobbies and passions I had long forgotten. I found strength in my independence. A year later, our home felt warm again. Ethan was thriving, and I felt empowered. The pain of the past remained, but we had grown stronger. One evening, Ethan said, "I'm proud of you, Mom." I smiled, tears in my eyes. "I'm proud of us." Just when I thought the worst was behind us, another crack formed in the picture frame of our so-called healing. It started with a letter. It came in a plain white envelope with no return address. The handwriting was messy. Ethan found it in the mailbox and handed it to me without a word. Inside was a single sheet of paper that read, "You don't know the whole truth. Ask Mark about what happened in Seattle, 2014. Ask about her." My hands trembled. I hadn't been to Seattle since a high school trip. What did this mean? What was her referring to? I sat on the couch in a daze, the letter still clenched in my fingers when Ethan came back into the room. "You okay?" he asked, chewing on a protein bar like it was just any other day. I handed him the letter. He read it slowly, then raised his eyes to mine. "You think it's real?" "I don't know," I whispered. "But I need to find out." I waited until the next morning to call Mark. I didn't want to hear his voice, but I needed answers. He picked up after 3 rings. "Yeah?" I didn't waste time. "Seattle. 2014. Who is she?" There was silence. Too long. Then, "Where did you hear that? Does it matter?" Mark sighed, and I heard the rattle of ice cubes in a glass. Look, it's complicated. You really want to do this now? Yes, I said. Right now. Another long pause. Then he said something that knocked the wind out of me. She was your sister. My body went cold. What? He didn't repeat it. Didn't need to. My thoughts were already racing. My younger half-sister, Melissa. The wild one. The one who dropped off the radar 8 years ago. The one I hadn't spoken to since our mom's funeral. She came to Seattle looking for you, Mark said slowly. But you never answered her calls. She and we were both lonely. It was a mistake. A one-time thing. I covered my mouth with my hand, the nausea rising. You slept with my sister? He didn't respond. Part 11. A son's fury. I didn't know Ethan had walked in. I didn't know he was standing behind me until he yelled, "Are you kidding me?" He stormed into the room, grabbed the phone, and screamed into it. You're disgusting. You're a coward. You ruin everything you touch. Ethan, stop. I tried to take the phone, but he shoved it back into my hand and ran to his room, slamming the door so hard the frame cracked. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the phone. I picked it back up and said the only thing that made sense. I never want to speak to you again, Mark. Ever. A week later, I found Melissa. It wasn't hard. I hired a private investigator using what little savings I had left. They tracked her to a quiet neighborhood in Portland, Oregon. I made the drive myself, needing answers straight from her mouth. She opened the door wearing oversized sunglasses and a baggy sweater. I barely recognized her. We sat on her porch in silence before she said, "He told you." I nodded. "It wasn't just one time," she said. "He told you it was once, right?" Typical. I stared at her. "How many times?" She looked away. "About a year. I didn't know he was still with you at first." I stood up so fast my chair toppled over. "A year." I ended it. "Okay." I left. I moved out here to disappear. I couldn't breathe. When I got back to Colorado, Ethan was gone. His phone off. His bed untouched. The neighbor said she saw him get into a truck with another teenager around 8 p.m. My heart dropped. I called every number I could. Checked hospitals. Called the police. They said they couldn't file a report until 24 hours passed. I screamed at them. Begged them. Nothing. I waited. 24 hours. 36. 72. And then, a text. "I'm safe. Don't look for me. I need space. But I didn't listen. I hired the same PI to track Ethan down. It took a month. He was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, staying with an older friend he'd met in a gaming community. A friend whose father was rumored to be involved in less-than-legal business. I drove all night. When I finally knocked on the door of the small adobe-style house, a boy answered. A little younger than Ethan. Behind him, I saw my son, hair longer, face thinner, and eyes that looked right through me. "Mom," he said, like he wasn't surprised at all. We sat on a cracked leather couch. The other kid left us alone. "I wasn't running from you," Ethan said. I couldn't be there. I felt like everything was fake. I reached for his hand. He let me take it. "I should have protected you better," I said, tears slipping out. "I should have seen what was happening between me and Mark and stopped it before it got this bad." He looked away. Then he asked the one question I couldn't answer. "If everything's been a lie, what's real?" 3 months later, I filed a restraining order against Mark. For harassment. He didn't take it well. Showed up at Ethan's school. Sent me threatening emails. Left voicemails late at night, slurring his words. The judge didn't hesitate. Mark was ordered to stay 500 feet away from both of us. But the damage was done. We moved to Boise, Idaho, for a fresh start. New house. New school. New locks on every door. Then came the biggest blow. While cleaning out my mother's old storage unit, I found a box labeled "Private, Read Alone." Inside was an old envelope. A DNA test. My name. Melissa's. And a note from my mom. I didn't want you to find out this way. But Melissa isn't your half-sister. She's your cousin. Your father's brother's daughter. We took her in when her parents died. I collapsed to the floor. She wasn't my sister. Mark hadn't cheated on me with my sister. He'd cheated on me with someone I was lied to about for years. Weeks after learning Melissa was my cousin and not my sister, I was digging through another box from the storage unit, mostly junk, expired coupons, yellowed receipts. But at the bottom, tucked between two worn novels, was a photo album I'd never seen before. I flipped through it. Pictures of my mom, my aunt, Melissa's mom, and two babies. One of them had a tag underneath, Baby Melissa. The other baby? My jaw clenched. Same baby, same outfit, different name, Baby Danielle. That was my name. And yet, both photos looked like Melissa. Exactly like her. Twins? No. I stared at a date written in the corner of the album. It was the same birthday I had. Melissa's birthday. My hands went numb. I called the hospital in Spokane, Washington, where my mother had claimed to give birth to me. Asked for my birth records. They had none. After pulling every string I could, digging through state adoption archives, and pushing until I finally found someone willing to search through old microfiche data, I got a call that turned my entire world upside down. You were adopted under emergency circumstances in June 1986. The original birth certificate was sealed. Emergency? Yes, ma'am. The biological mother was your aunt. You were one of twin girls. The other one, Melissa, was placed in her custody after a family tragedy. My mom hadn't adopted Melissa. She'd adopted me. I wasn't my mother's biological daughter. Melissa was. I found Melissa again. This time, I brought the photo, the paperwork, everything. She looked at it, then at me, and broke down sobbing. I always wondered, she said. They were whispering about it one night. I was 9. I heard your name. Something about a switch. Then my mom died. And your mom just never talked about it. But why would they do that? Because my mom was in trouble. Drugs. Men. CPS was going to take me away. Your parents swooped in, took both of us. But only one of us could legally stay. The healthy one. That was me. Melissa had always had health problems as a baby. She'd almost died. So they made a choice. And never told us. It had been 6 months since we moved to Boise when Ethan handed me a letter. I wrote it a while ago, he said. Didn't know if I'd ever give it to you. I read it alone in the backyard. The pages shook in my hands. Dear Mom, sometimes I hated you. I hated Dad. I hated everything. But now I understand something. You've been lied to your whole life, and you still protected me. That takes strength I don't have yet. I thought I had it bad, getting a black eye from a stupid fight. But I didn't know what it was like to have your whole identity ripped away. You're my mom. You're not perfect. But you're mine. And I love you. I cried until the sun set. I didn't want revenge. But I needed closure. So I went back to where it all started. Seattle. Mark was living in a dingy apartment above a gas station. A shadow of the man he used to be. He looked surprised when he opened the door. You lost. No, I said, holding out the DNA results, the photo album, the adoption papers. I found myself. He tried to shut the door, but I blocked it. You broke this family with your lies, I said. But I'm going to build something better from it. I handed him a court summons custody hearing. Ethan had requested a restraining order on his own. We were suing for damages over emotional abuse. Mark's eyes widened. You can't do this. I smiled. Watch me. We won the case. Mark didn't even show up. The judge granted a permanent restraining order. I got full legal and physical custody. We sold the house in Aurora and made Boise our forever home. Melissa and I, we're not sisters anymore. We're twins. But more than that, we're two women trying to recover from a lifetime of lies. She moved nearby. Helps with Ethan sometimes. Our bond is awkward, but real. Sometimes, truth isn't something you inherit. It's something you fight to uncover. 1 year later, I published my story. I changed names, left out some details. But the core, the betrayal, the family lies, the buried DNA, stayed intact. The book became a quiet bestseller in the true crime community. It paid for Ethan's college tuition. One reviewer said, "This is the kind of story you'd never believe unless it happened to you." I smiled, because it did happen. To me. It came on a Wednesday. A letter in the mail. No return address. Postmarked from Detroit, Michigan. Inside was a single page. You don't get to pretend you're innocent. You were never supposed to be the one who lived her life. You took mine. No signature. But I knew the handwriting. Melissa. That night, I invited her over. She came. Quiet. Tense. I placed the letter in front of her. "I thought we were healing," I said. "You said you forgave me." Melissa didn't look me in the eye. "You had everything. Our parents gave you my name, my bedroom, my future. I got left with the scraps." I slammed my hand on the table. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know. I was a baby. Don't punish me for what they did." Melissa's lips trembled. "But you enjoyed it. Every minute of it." I watched. While I drowned, you floated. I stood up, shaking. "So what? You want to swap now? You want the trauma, the cheating husband, the broken son." Silence. "No," she said finally. "I just want you to admit you won." 3 days later, Ethan came home drunk. That had never happened before. He slammed the door and collapsed on the couch. "I hate all of you," he mumbled. "I'm not even sure who I am anymore." I sat beside him, heartbreaking all over again. "You're my son," I whispered. "That's who you are." He turned to me, eyes bloodshot. "You raised me with a liar. Then you became one. You lied about being okay. I was trying to protect you." "Don't," he spat. "Don't say that. That's what Dad used to say." He didn't come out of his room for 2 days. 2 weeks later, I got a call from an estate lawyer. My mother's will had been amended quietly 6 months before her death. The lawyer read it out loud. "To my biological daughter, Melissa, I leave the family land in Colorado Springs. To Danielle, the daughter I chose, I leave the savings account and full rights to my story, should she ever write it." I felt sick. Melissa got the house, the history, the roots. I got the money. And the lies. It happened at midnight. Melissa's farmhouse, our family's old land, was on fire. They never figured out the cause. They said faulty wiring. No foul play. Melissa got out in time. But everything inside, gone. Photos. Journals. The last of our mother's things. Gone. I went to see the wreckage. Stood in the blackened ruins, the air still smelling of smoke. Melissa stood beside me, hollow. "I didn't set it," I said. "I didn't say you did," she replied. We stared at the ashes. No one said, "I'm sorry." I didn't mean for it to turn out like this. But I was tired of always being the one who cleaned up. So I found the woman Mark had been texting the first affair. The one Ethan found on his tablet years ago. She had moved to Tucson, Arizona. She was divorced now. Bitter. Angry. I offered her a deal. "Write your part. Everything. I'll include it in the second book. We'll name names. Split the profit." She agreed. It was called The Man Who Broke Two Families. It sold better than the first. Mark's name, real and unedited, trended on social media for 3 days straight. He lost his job, got evicted, was spotted panhandling outside a Safeway in Las Vegas. Melissa sued me for defamation. She lost. I countersued for harassment. She went quiet. Ethan got into NYU. Before he left, we had one last argument. "You enjoy revenge too much," he said. "You don't understand what it's like to be used and discarded." He pointed at his chest. "Yes, I do." I swallowed hard. "I won't become you," he said. "I'll survive you." Then he hugged me. Tight. But not warm. And he was gone. Mark died of liver failure alone in a hospital bed. They found my number in his phone under IC. I didn't go. But I paid for the cremation. Out of guilt. Out of pity. Ethan didn't return my texts when I told him. 1 year later, I got a letter. It was from a woman in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She said she was my half-sister. Mark had another daughter, born in 2004, named Danielle, after me. Sometimes I sit in the backyard, watching the wind move the trees. I look at my hands, wrinkled, tired. I've lost a son, a sister, a husband, a name. But I kept one thing: the truth. And the truth destroys. Like fire, like betrayal, like a frame shattered, glass in every corner. But it also frees you, if you can survive it.